This conference will now be recorded.
Hi everyone. Today I am going to discussing about REST over JMS. What is REST over JMS? For suppose if I am publishing a message into any one of the JMS queue, then Mule ESB flow can subscribe that and it will consume a REST service internally. So that whatever the message has published to the JMS queue, that will be integrated with the target system. So to do that, I have already explained and developed one of the REST service in session level. I have just deployed the to Cloud Hub, and this is the URL, and this is the expected XML payload. And now for this payload, let me go to Postman and hit the request. In similar way, we are going to consume this service from Mule ESB. Okay. To do that, create a new project. Let me take name as REST over JMS. Finish.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so to work with JMS, we need a JMS, and we already discussed how to install ActiveMQ and how to work with it. Let me go to ActiveMQ and go under bin under 64. Let's start the ActiveMQ server. Once it gets started, we were able at localhost 8161. The server has started. Go here and username is admin and password is also same when you install ActiveMQ. Now what I'm going to do, I am going to creating a queue. The queue is queue.fsd.emp create. Now what I have to do, whenever I publish a message to this queue, that should be subscribed in our flow and that should be sent to the target system. But in middle we have to transform it because we have decided to send a JSON payload to this JMS queue. So whenever I publish this should be transformed to expected XML, and the mapping will be the EMP ID and the employee status. So by default, the employee is of active. When the employee resigns, so that should be updated to the inactive. So that is the integration we were going to do. Assume HR system is responsible to publish this message into a queue. Once it gets published, then our flow will subscribe it and will do the required transformation and will call the update employee flow, which is a REST service. To do that, let me get the host details of ActiveMQ. To get that, we just need to go to Apache under conf. We have ActiveMQ file. So here we can find there the servers was running. Here it was running. Let me just copy paste. We need this to connect to this server. And let me go here. go to GMS module. Under that, go to listener, drag and drop.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, let me copy the queue name. Just let me give as that queue listener here. Okay, and go to connector configuration. So here we need to configure the active MQ jars. By default, it is pointing to the active MQ. If you wanted to work with any MQ server, we need to go for the generic connection. For this, you can refer MuleSoft documentation to get the details to connect whatever the server you would like to connect. Click on configure, use local file, and I am going to provide the jar. As we know already, just go to ActiveMQ where you downloaded. In that, you can able to find all jar, ActiveMQ all jar. Just browse it. Okay, scroll down, and here under factory configuration, click on edit inline. Here we need to provide the host detail of ActiveMQ. That is what I have just copy pasted. I think it's gone. Let me copy paste again. Or it is 61616. Let me type manually. TCP like your HTTP, and where it is running localhost. Either you can treat as a 0.0.0.0 or localhost and 61616. That is 61616. And the username is, one moment.
This conference will now be recorded.
Username is admin and password is also same. So we are done with the configuration. Just are not yet downloaded. Seems it was still getting those.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, the jars get loaded. Click on OK.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, give the queue name here. Let me just copy paste. We are done with JMS listener. Just save, and as usual, have start log. Go here for logger connector. Just drag and drop logger. So let me take as a start log, and I say here started rest over JMS flow, and just let me print the payload to understand what payload was coming. So the input payload that we are going to get is JSON file. This JSON payload I have already saved into a .json file, and the expected output by expected input by the REST service. That means we have to transform this JSON payload to this XML payload. The mapping is employee ID to EMP ID and employee status to EMP status. Let's do that. So to do that, just drag and drop transform message. And here we have to choose the bold metadata and outbound metadata, just do the mapping. Here, set metadata, click on add emp input metadata, click on create type, and we know that is we are going to get a JSON payload here. So let's take type as JSON. Take it as a JSON and go for example. Let's browse. So I've already saved those files on desktop. One is EMP input. The metadata is populated. Select.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, the inbound metadata is created. The payload which we are going to get is from JMS listener. In similar way, go for outbound metadata. Click on create type, and which is of XML. We know that, right? Just choose XML. Go to example on desktop. I have EMP output as a XML document. Select. I just saved it before the session, and it has loaded the EMP ID, EMP status. Click on select.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, it has populated. Just map employee ID to EMP ID. It will generate the mapping for us. It is of XML, and it is going to generate this. And drag and drop EMP status to EMP status. Now we are good. Just let me rename it as EMP update EMP payload. Done. Now we are going to consume a REST service. To do that, go to HTTP module, go for requests, and here we are going to consume this service. Okay, which is of HTTP, and the host is this. Let me copy the host, and by default port will be 80 for HTTP based services. Let me take as EMP SAPI update request. Go for configuration. Here the host will be the host, and by default the port is 80. Whenever you don't find any port in URL, I mean in complete URL, by default we have to take 80 for HTTP based services. If it is HTTPS, we have to take 443 as the default port whenever you have domain names. Click on OK, and path here we can give complete path, which is of post method. Select to post, save, and once we get the response, we were like, what we can do, actually it is a JMS listener, right? So we need not to respond back anywhere. We usually just do the end log. In that we will just print the response. Okay, let me run in debugging mode so that we can see the execution.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, the application got deployed. So next, get the payload that we would like to send and publish into the queue so that this flow will be subscribed. Go to ActiveMQ, click on send to, and here we can pass the payload what we would like to send. So here it will be subscribed. It came and the request came as this we sent, that is here we can see EMP ID, EMP name, EMP status, and next. So here we are just printing the payload whatever we have received. It was not coming as JSON actually from the input. So here it is coming as string but not as JSON. Here we don't have chance to set the MIME type, but usually whenever we publish, we usually set the MIME type. I do not see any option. So for that, what we can do is we can change the string into JSON. Just have a transform message and let just me convert this to JSON, whatever the value I am getting. So usually whenever a publisher publishes this payload into a queue, usually they send as application slash JSON. But for us, here we don't have chance to describe the MIME type. That is the reason I have been doing in our code. This is not a mandatory step. Let it get deployed. I'm not sure whether it deployed or not. Anyway, let me give you a try now. Click on send. Yes. Next. Next. Still it was showing as text. I think the changes has not deployed. Yes. Let me redeploy the application. Debug again.
This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, actually the issue has came because after subscribing the message it was considering as a string. So in under under JMS listener, after Q, if you see here we have option called what is the inbound content type that we were expecting. So if we keep as application slash JSON, it will give the payload as JSON for the next flow. Let me save and let it get redeployed.
This conference will now be recorded.
It got deployed. Now go to ActiveMQ and make a request. Send to, let me get the payload. Send. As you see, next, next, next. So it is able to send the request to the update service. That means we are able to consume. And if you see logs, here we are making the entry log, and before the request, what we are sending to the service, we are logging, and this is the response we got from the update system API while after the consuming the service. That's all. Thank you.